Johnny Sports Network here to provide you with additional Week 3 college football predictions. This is the best of the rest of Week 3 of the college football season. And we begin this week's best of the rest with two games on Friday night, both in the Big 12. And our first one, Colorado and Houston. For Colorado, it is anticipated third-string quarterback Ryan Staub will be starting in this game. Staub came in last week in relief against Delaware. He went 7 for 10, 158 yards, 2 touchdown passes. We did see Julian Lewis get a few snaps in the game last week. And I do think with a move like this, even though Ryan Staub knows the offense more, as he has experience with the offense, backing up Shedeur Sanders the last 2 seasons, I do think that is proof that Colorado is going to, in all likelihood, redshirt Julian Lewis for this season. And Colorado will be going on the road to Houston to go up against an experienced quarterback in college football in Connor Wegman that has dealt with injuries throughout his career so far. He had a season-ending injury in 2023 while at Texas A&M, and last year at Texas A&M, he dealt with injuries throughout most of the season. And so far this season, he's thrown for 374 passing yards, 4 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. Houston is currently 4th in scoring defense, only giving up an average of 4.5 points per game. I think this matchup, to me, I'm basing it off of the more experienced quarterback in this game, and that is Connor Wegman. I am curious to see how Ryan Staub does against Power 4 competition. And I do think Houston, they do cover the 4.5 points they're currently favored by. Kansas State and Arizona in the second of the 2 games on Friday night. And things have completely shifted with this game. Arizona, at the beginning, they were favored by 1.5 points. And now it has completely shifted to Kansas State being favored by 1.5 points. And I think part of it is there are reports that Kansas State running back Dylan Edwards is 50-50 to play in this matchup. Dylan Edwards, he has not played since the beginning of the Week 0 game against Iowa State in Ireland. And Dylan Edwards returning to the lineup is the boost that this Kansas State team needs after losing at home to Army last week. And Kansas State, they are still looking to find themselves this season. Is 2025 Kansas State turning into 2024 Florida State? I do think this game is going to be a major indication on if they are or if they aren't. Quarterback Avery Johnson, the big key for Kansas State to have success going into the season was him improving as a passer. And he is doing that so far. He's completed 65.3% of his passes. He did have the mistake against Army at the end, throwing the interception. But he did come through for them in Week 1 against North Dakota, leading the game-winning drive, and now Kansas State goes on the road against Arizona. An Arizona team that I honestly did not know what to expect from them going into the season. I did not expect much from Arizona. Even though they've only played Hawaii and Weber State, they're tied with Houston for 4th in scoring defense, only giving up an average of 4.5 points per game. Quarterback Noah Fafita, who I do think is an underrated quarterback, despite my expectations for Arizona in the preseason fairly low. 534 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. With Dylan Edwards being 50-50 to play in this game, I do think if Dylan Edwards gets ruled out, I do think things are going to shift back to Arizona being favored, or this game will become a pick'em. I am going to pick Arizona to win the game. I just can't really pick Kansas State until they can show that they can win games against meaningful competition. I will be going with the Arizona Wildcats. Duke and Tulane. Duke is currently favored by 1.5. Last week, Duke, they had a good start to the game against Illinois, but the muffed punt, that's where everything started to go wrong for Duke. Even though Duke, they were only down 1 at the half, Illinois, they dominated the second half of that game, and turnovers were a major contribution to that. In total, Duke had 5 turnovers in that game. A bright spot for Duke early in the season, quarterback Darian Mensah, 723 passing yards on the season so far, 4th in the FBS. And they look to bounce back on the road against Tulane, where Tulane is headlined by BYU transfer quarterback Jake Retzloff. Jake Retzloff has only completed 56.4% of his passes so far this season, but running the football, 23 carries, 177 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And when I look at this game, I am thinking that the majority of people, they would look at both teams and say Duke has the better quarterback, is Darian Mensah, he's 4th in the FBS in passing yards, while Jake Retzloff has only completed 56% of his passes. However, Jake Retzloff, he is the more experienced quarterback in this matchup, and despite him not being accurate with his passes and having a 56.4 completion percentage, last season at BYU, where BYU ended up going 11-2, he had a 57.9 completion percentage, 20 touchdown passes, 12 interceptions. And I'm going to pick Tulane to win this game because I do think that Jake Retzloff, I think he's going to do what he did at BYU last season and manage the game. And I do think if Tulane were to win this game, I do think they're going to join that conversation as far as contenders in the group of 5 to get the group of 5 playoff bid, if they aren't already. The big story of the group of 5 so far has been South Florida. But I think Tulane, if they win this game, they will join them in that conversation. Arkansas and number 17, Ole Miss. Arkansas will be preparing for 2 quarterbacks in this matchup. Ole Miss starting quarterback Austin Simmons, he left the game in the middle of the 4th quarter in the Kentucky game last week. He was unable to put weight on his right leg, but Lane Kiffin, he did make a statement saying that Austin Simmons, he could have been out there for the final 2 possessions if they needed him to be. But they had backup quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, who finished the game for Ole Miss. And despite that statement by Lane Kiffin, Arkansas, they are still preparing for both quarterbacks for this game. And so far this season, Arkansas is 4th in total offense. They are 4th in 3rd down conversion percentage, converting on 3rd down 70% of the time, and they are 9th in 1st down offense. For Ole Miss, running back Kawan Lacey, 9th in the FBS in rushing yards with 246 on the season so far. And Ole Miss, they are toward the middle of the pack in 3rd down conversion percentage, converting on 3rd down 42% of the time, 60th in the FBS. With the statement Lane Kiffin made saying Austin Simmons could have finished the game if they needed him to, does that mean that they are fully confident that he is close to 100% for this matchup? Or could Lane Kiffin be bluffing a little bit? What I think the safe play for this matchup would be to take Arkansas with the points, because we don't know the full extent of Austin Simmons. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take Ole Miss to cover the 7.5 points, as I think Ole Miss, at a minimum, wins this game by 10 points. The main story for Arkansas last season was they were in some games last season against top-tier teams, but they just made too many mistakes, which cost them in games. Regardless of if Austin Simmons is close to or at 100% or not, I'm going to take Ole Miss to cover the 7.5 points, as I think they'll win by 10 at the bare minimum. And with the final game of the best of the rest for Week 3, the Backyard Brawl, Pittsburgh and West Virginia. Last season, Pittsburgh, they started the season strong, 7-0, but they ended the season on a 6-game losing streak, while West Virginia, it is the first year in the return of Rich Rodriguez to Morgantown. And the Mountaineers, they are looking for a major response this week after being upset by Ohio on the road last week, 17-10. And I will get to that a little more in a moment. Pittsburgh, they have 16 returning starters from a year ago. The Panthers currently find themselves 9th in scoring offense, averaging 53 points a game. And they are also currently 35th in the FBS in total offense. While West Virginia, despite only mustering 10 points last week against Ohio, the Mountaineers, they are 43rd in total offense. And a big reason why West Virginia lost to Ohio, the defense gave up 429 yards of offense to Ohio. Despite that, the defense did everything they could to give West Virginia a chance in that game. The offense, they just couldn't deliver. The defense, they forced 3 turnovers. West Virginia's defense last week, it bended, but it didn't break. At least it didn't break when you consider the fact they gave up 429 yards of offense while still forcing 3 turnovers. They were on the field against Ohio last week for over 40 minutes. And if you're on the field defensively for over 40 minutes, how many games do you think you're actually going to win? For West Virginia to pull off this upset, they're going to have to extend drives. Last week against Ohio, they were 2 for 13 on third down, if I remember correctly. And I am going to pick Pittsburgh to win this game. I just feel like they are the better team in this matchup. However, I do like the value of West Virginia at plus 7.5, given this is a rivalry game. And in rivalry games, you can forget about rankings, stats, records. It doesn't matter. My pick here is Pittsburgh to win outright, but for West Virginia to lose by less than 8 points. And that will do it for the best of the rest for Week 3. If there is a game that was not talked about in the main 7 of the best of the rest that you like my thoughts on, please leave in the comments section and I will give you a response. The predictions for the main 7 for this week, they are uploaded. My Week 2 NFL predictions also uploaded. My week 2 takeaways for college football will be on YouTube Shorts in the next day or two, and my week 1 NFL takeaways will be also on YouTube Shorts. Enjoy the games this weekend. Have a good one. And until next time, Vegas is always watching.